at 5,000 feet elevation, and the frost dangers at this elevation and the weather dangers are imminent all the time. And so we wanted to have a property that would drain cold air away in the spring and drain hot air away in the summer at night to get our grapes cool. So drainage is very important. We were also looking for volcanic soils. Peggy and I have always gravitated towards wines from either Australia or Washington or Northern California. There's something about volcanic soils that draw us to the grapes from those areas. And also volcanic soil tends to be very, very good drainage because there's a lot of rock to it. And it's very heavy soil. So it's not an erosive sand or sandy loam soil. And finally, we were looking for altitude. We wanted to hit that 5,000 foot area. That way we can get that 30-degree temperature swing between daytime high and nighttime low. That's called a diurnal shift. And I feel that the best grapes in the world are grown with that 30-degree temperature range. And we found it here in the Chiricahua Mountains.
At any time, if you want to ask a question as we go along, I believe you can unmute yourself and ask a question. So by all means do that. Otherwise we'll and I'll try to watch if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand. I don't see everyone's picture. So we'll just keep plugging along.
So that's the past. That was in 2007 when we found this property. We planted grapes in 2008. We got our first estate vintage in 2009, which is pretty remarkable.
Unheard of to have a commercial crop that quickly.
Usually takes 3 to 5 years. And so we made our first estate wine in 2009. And so, and we've been growing ever since. We're up to 13 acres now. We've still got the 4 varietals, Viognier, Grenache, Syrah, and Petit Syrah, and they're all thriving. I was very happy to see this bud break. We had bud break about 3 weeks ago after the vines were dormant all winter. And I've only found one plant that didn't bud out of 13,000. That's pretty doggone good. Usually you're gonna get a 3 to 5% winter kill. And we got a 0.0001 winter kill this year, which is fantastic. So what's going on right now is we've got a bunch of vines that are budded out. And I hope you can see this. This is pretty fascinating. Every year, it's a miracle to me that this happens. But you can see the vines have budded out. And you can see this here. That's called a tendril. And that's what the vines cling to the trellising with. And the vines all like to have some support. We have artificial support because it's a steel trellis. But if vines were growing in the wild, they would be grabbing onto trees or whatever they could find with these tendrils. This is the beginning of the tendrils. These are the shoots. You can see another little tiny tendril there coming out. But this is the most exciting part. You see right here, that is a great bud. And each one of those little circles is going to form into a flower. And if that flower is pollinated, it's going to turn into a grape. Because I love you guys so much, I counted 132 buds on this. So if this pollinates completely, there'll be 132 grapes on this cluster. So that thing's going to be about that long. It's a big old Viognier cluster. And these will be probably flowering mid-May. And grapes are self-pollinating. So they don't need a bee. They don't need anything else. They put out each plant has its own little stamen and it pollinates itself. If we get a little wind, if we were completely still, we'd probably get some incomplete pollination. And on the other hand, if we get too much wind, the flowers are so tiny and delicate that they can get actually blown off the plant. So during flowering, which takes about a week, we're hoping for fairly calm weather. They can put up with some wind. Years ago, we had some 50, 60 mile an hour howling winds during flowering, and our yields were down 50% because of that. That's how much the weather can do. You can see this one here.
Before you go on, I unmuted everyone, I believe. So you can unmute yourself now, I believe. So put yourself on mute until you want to ask a question.
I've got a question for Curt. John
Sure.
Raymond.
Thank you.
I've got a question for Curt if he's available.
Yep,
John
go ahead.
Raymond. Hey, Kurt, are we out of the woods yet? Are you out of the woods yet as far as late spring frost, I hope, down there at 5,000 feet?
May 1st is usually our exhale date. That's when we put the whiskey bottle away and we think we're pretty safe for the year after May 1st.
Yeah.
Range weather forecast is looking really good. We're going to be in the 80s, and it's going to be awfully hard with the ground heating up like that to, even if we get some cold weather come through, to form a frost. So I'm never going to say we're out of the woods, but I'd say 99.9% we're out of the woods this year. So it's a good time.
That sounds great. Do you guys do any fan work down there? I didn't see any last time I was there.
No, we don't do fans. Fans don't work very well in Arizona, only because we get an invective frost.
Same thing. Can't hear.
As opposed to
This
frost
phone.
somewhere else, and our air is so dry. The fans, they can maybe save you a couple degrees, but we have.
I can hear with the earphones.
No, sometimes you can hear. You need a.
We can actually have.
But I don't want to start over because it took me, look at how long it took me, 15 minutes to get on, and I register.
But I don't
Okay,
know.
I can hear you guys. Thunder's talking.
I can hear.
You need a.
Yeah, mute everybody.
I'm going to mute everyone
They
again.
muted me.
Good idea.
Okay.
What?
Okay, everyone is muted now.
Okay, getting back to our flower buds. I don't know if you can see the difference in color of these two. This has changed a little bit in color. That means it's more mature than the other bud. So they'll start to get a little bit darker as they're getting ready to flower. But these are off plants that are one right next to the other. So you can see the one's a little bit ahead of the other one. But it's fascinating to watch this happen and then realize that this miracle is going to turn into a cluster of grapes. So that's what's going on in the vineyard now.
Curt, when we're about a week later than we were last year or 2 years ago, because you wanted to slow down the ripening or for the budding out this year, and you added water to this irrigation or something like that?
We irrigate all winter, not nearly as much as the summer, but I really, beginning of March, I put quite a bit of water on the vineyard, trying to keep the ground cold. And so that plant wouldn't get signaled to come out too early, because the longer it's out, the earlier it's out, the more exposed it is. So if we can keep those guys asleep as long as possible, that's what we're going to try to do. Now, I don't know if the watering made a huge difference. It could be just a year, but it makes you feel good that you're actually trying to do something that you want to have happen. But we kept them pretty moist in March, and we budded out way later than most of Arizona. Even California budded out ahead of us. So we did something, or Mother Nature did something to slow it down this year, and I was pleased about that because we got plenty of sunshine down here. They will catch up. I'm not worried about that. And the longer we can keep them on the grapes on the vine into September, the higher quality of the fruit we have. So slow is good for us because we don't have to worry about ripening. In France, they lose sleep trying to get their grapes ripe. We don't have that problem here because we've got lots of sunshine and lots of heat. So we can get those guys going. We can also accelerate the ripening process a bit, is how we manage the water.
And we're about 1,000 feet higher than the Kansas settlement area, where a lot of the grapes are grown in Arizona, in southeastern Arizona, but we're about 1,000 feet higher than they are. And so the air from the mountain flows south, and they are, or towards Kansas settlement and west, and sits down in that valley a little bit more. So we tend to ripen later and go well into the season. So harvest really occurs down in that area a lot sooner than it occurs where we are.
And they also seem to get a lot more frost damage down there. We seem to be 2 to 3 degrees warmer, even though we're higher. It doesn't make any sense. But the impact of the mountain, there's always temperature gradients and all kinds of things happening in the mountain that keeps the air moving. But when you get frost damage is when that air just lays down on top of those plants and just gets cold. And if you've got air movement, natural air movement, we talked about fans earlier, but you've got natural air movement, natural air currents, it does protect your vineyard from frost a lot better than fans could. And this spot just seems to be warm. Even Keeling Schaefer, which is only 3 miles away, they will get frost damage and we will get none. They'll be 29, we'll be 32. There's just something about this spot. I think a lot of it has to do with the mountain, and a lot of it has to do with our creek. We have a 600-foot wide creek running right next to the vineyard that seems to drain cold air by us and keeps us a little bit warmer. And that was one of the criteria that we had when we found the place. When I found everything I was looking for, the creek was just a kicker. I mean, that was a beautiful topographical feature. It not only creates a place for water to go to, because we have about a 4% slope to it, but the trees, there's 150-year-old live oak trees in there, and there's something about it that temperates the climate here in this spot.
And it's about 6 feet below our vineyard.
About 12 feet. Actually.
12 feet below our vineyard. So where Keeling Schaefer also has a creek running through their vineyard, it is not lower than their vineyard. It's about
and
the
it's
same.
only about 30 feet wide,
Right.
whereas it's 600 feet. So ours is a significant topographical feature. That's just a little waterway.
Yeah.
Big difference.
And all of those features really come into play when you're thinking about the terroir that has an impact on our vineyard and how we manage our vineyard. We have to think about the winds coming off that mountain, the airflow coming off that mountain, we have cold spots in the vineyard because of that. So we have to take that all into consideration when we're thinking about grape growing.
So I talked earlier about the volcanic soils, and volcanic soils to us are magical. The volcanic soils here occurred when the Turkey Creek caldera exploded and basically created the Chiricahua Mountains, which are 10,000 feet in elevation. So they're way up here. And when the Turkey Creek caldera exploded 23 million years ago, it spewed towards us. We weren't here yet. Sometimes I feel like I'm 23 million years old, but it spewed all that volcanic debris onto our property. And a lot of it was rock, this pulverized rhyolite granite. And a lot of it was ash and decomposed rhyolite granite, which turned into dust. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is a sampling of the soils that we have. You can see a lot of rocks, and there's some of that volcanic dust on the bottom. But what happened is when the volcano exploded, what landed first? The rocks, of course, because they're heavier. And then over maybe 100 years after a cataclysmic explosion like that, the dust and ash settled on top. So we've got about this much volcanic ash and dust on our topsoil. Underneath it is all these rocks. And so that gives us tremendous drainage. The rocks also keep the ground cooler during the winter and in the spring, because they hold temperature better, which makes us bud out later, which is good. And in the summer, they hold in some heat. So the rocks are very beneficial, not only from a drainage standpoint, but from an overall terroir. And the flavors that we're getting from the wines as they get down into those rocks is quite unique. Our wines don't taste like anybody else's, for better or worse. When you get to know us, you can smell us because it's our place. So that's the soil, and that's what we're dealing with all the time. The rocks are a pain in the neck. If you ever have to dig anything, you're swearing at them, but then when the vines come out and they're very healthy and you make wine out of the grapes, you're glad they're there. The volcanic soil is also very, as I mentioned earlier, very heavy. It's very dense, and so we don't get the erosion that a lot of vineyards get. We've got just the right amount of slope. But even after a really, really heavy rain, we're not getting those rivers running through the vineyard. The soil pretty much stays put. So during the growing season, we do augment the soil. We don't use any animal products in the soil because that would make us non-vegan, believe it or not. If we put manure down, we would lose our ability to call our wines vegan. Having any animal product in the vineyard or in the winery is not good for get your vegan designation. So we don't use animal products. We don't use a lot of fertilizer. We use a little bit of nitrogen once or twice a year, and that's injected through the irrigation system. But we use a lot of trace elements. Grapes have very specific needs, and we typically have to augment the soils with zinc, copper, and iron during the growing season. Now, how we do that and how we figure out how to do that is we have this process that we call petiole sampling. Can you all see that leaf? Okay. The petiole is
Turn it
what,
sideways. There we go.
I don't want them to see that.
Oh, okay.
The petiole is this right here, this piece. And so we go out and we take samples of the petiole. This is the,
Let me hold it for you. It's the actual like branch.
so you can see it's the tissue between the main shoot and the leaf right there. See it?
Right there.
That's it. That's the petiole. And we'll take samples of that petiole, and everything you want to know about the health of that grape plant is in this petiole, believe it or not. It tells us what nutrients are coming to the leaves. It tells us what trace elements might be lacking. It tells us what to do. Or sometimes it tells us to do nothing, which is a really happy day, because then my fertilizer salesman doesn't get a commission. But typically it'll have some kind of deficiency. As I mentioned, zinc, copper, and iron are typical for us to have to augment during the year. Some of those we add right through the irrigation system. They're better uptaken by the plant through the roots. Others are better topically applied. So what we do is we spray the leaves, and the leaves absorb certain trace elements better than through the root system. So we're always experimenting on which is most effective. And then what's amazing is you can do a petiole sample. You can go out and inject something into the water system, and within a couple of days you can do another petiole sample, and the whole thing's changed. It's amazing how quickly the plant reacts to that little injection of goodies that makes it happy. Or sometimes you overdo it a little bit, and because it's a kind of a guessing game. The laboratory tells us what we need to do, but the laboratory is not out there. That's my laboratory, and it's an ongoing experiment, petri dish, if you will.
If anyone has any questions, you can wave your hand and I'll unmute you. I think I can see most everyone, or just, okay, John, I'll unmute you. Actually, I'm unmuting all, so everyone be quiet. It's always the easiest. Okay, John.
Hey, Curt, yeah, I just wondered, in that same vein, what kind of canopy management do you guys like to do throughout the growing season, or especially toward the end of harvest?
We don't have to do a lot of canopy management. We try to do a lot of our canopy management during shoot thinning, but each year is a little bit different. We got lots of sun down here, so we typically don't need to strip leaves like they do in a lot of places to get that final shot of sunshine onto the vines and onto the ripening fruit. Our canopy management, to me, is we're looking for as much sun exposure on the leaves as possible. So we try to get a lot of vigor in the vines during the growing season. So basically, the leaves are like solar panels. The more solar panels you put on a building, the more power you can generate. Well, the more leaves you can expose to the sun, the more nutrients the plant generates, and it creates better grapes. So unless we have a super heavy because of just the growing season, we don't take a whole lot off. We do a little bit at the end, mostly for ventilation, because we tend to get our monsoon storms down here in late September, August, early September, and the vineyard can get wet, and we can get mildew and bunch rot. So we'll sometimes not take actually the canopy off, some of the lower leaves right around the fruiting wire, but we can get wind going through there, and drying out those grapes after we get our.
To plug it in.
Okay, any other questions that you might have? Okay, I don't think I'm hearing any.
So a lot of people have questions about watering. How much do we water? To grow a dollar's worth of grapes takes about 3% of the water it takes to grow a dollar's worth of cotton. You'll find that hard to believe, but grapes are a very low water use crop. Most of the grapes that you drink wine from today back in the Middle East, and they were brought from Persia, which is now Iran, to Europe, which you think of the birthplace of wine, but they're desert plants. They like getting wet, but then they like getting dry right after that. So we don't use nearly as much water as other crops. A lot of people don't realize it takes a gallon of water to grow 1 almond. That's amazingly high water use crop. If we had to grow use a gallon of water for each grape, we would probably need the Pacific Ocean to get 1 crop out. So it's very low water use. During the winter time, we'll usually water each plant about a gallon a week. And that's done in a 1/2 gallon emitter. So we'll run like 2 hours a week on each plant. And then during the summertime in June, when that's our hottest month, and that's when the plant is pushing really hard, we'll water up to 10 gallons a week in June. And then we'll start to taper that back as the humidity starts to come on. But June's a very tough month. We're running almost 24/7 irrigation. And because not only is it hot, it can get up to almost 100 degrees here, but the humidity is still very, very low in June. And that's causing a lot of transpiration of moisture from the leaves. And in June, the plants are big. They're not these little guys. They're, the shoots are that long. And so there's a lot of leaf surface and a lot of moisture is leaving through those leaves. So we just got to keep pouring that water on them to keep them healthy.
And Curt, doesn't it depend on the different varietals and the age of the vine might need different water?
Yeah, somewhat. Now we're getting to the point now where the vineyard is fairly homogeneous as far as age. I mean, the difference between a 1-year-old vine and a 5-year-old vine is huge, but the difference between a 7-year-old vine and a 9-year-old vine is not that different. So we're pretty much watering the entire vineyard on the same schedule. And the varietal, so far, I haven't seen one varietal get dry quicker than another. It's been pretty uniform so far. So the irrigation, we just got the coolest new system.
New technology toys.
New technology toy, but it's also a practical toy.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And this allows me to irrigate and control the irrigation from anywhere in the world. We have a Wi-Fi system now that goes from the house all the way to the well, and then the well has a flow meter on it, so I can tell exactly who's getting what, how many gallons are running per station. I can control the timing. I can start and stop the system. I can tell if there's leaks. I can tell if the well's having problems or if a piece of machinery is down. It's the coolest thing. This is my screen. We have 7 watering stations in the vineyard. They're all about 13 rows each. And you can see the roadblock Petite Syrah is watering right now. See the little blue guy? That's the little emitter, and it tells me that the building block Petite Syrah is in irrigation right now. And then we'll be turning it on tonight, and we'll be running all the stations during the evening. We try to run it at night as much as possible because we get less evaporation because it's cooler and the sun's not out. And also there's less wind. So the water is going right down onto the plant as opposed to getting kind of blown around a little bit. So we try to irrigate as much as we can at night, but this is a great advancement for us because I don't have my foreman here anymore. Who is living here, and he could monitor water. I have to monitor water from wherever I am. And that's, so this was a very important piece of equipment for us to get. Plus it's kind of cool.
It's pretty cool. Between that and our weather station, I think 2 things that winemakers or viticulture folks are crazy about are their weather station, watching the weather, how the weather's changing in the vineyard all the time. And we have 2 weather stations, right? Or
Just one.
We have the one.
We have 3 sensors.
3 sensors.
3 sensors in the vineyard,
So,
but only one base station.
yeah.
And I'm looking to upgrade that so I can see that from anywhere in the world too. But we're working on that. That option is a little pricey, but we'll get there. But so watering is, of course, is key in Arizona, and so we try to manage our water, not too much, not too little. It's still a work in progress. We don't have it completely figured out yet, and every year is a little bit different. We had a wet winter this year. I think that's what also slowed down our bud break. We got rain about every 2 weeks during the whole winter, which was great for the vineyard because that's mama's milk. I mean, anything we don't have to pull out of the ground is a good thing. But it also gave us a bumper crop of weeds. So we've got lots of weeds this year. And so I'm still working on those. I was on the tractor all day yesterday and didn't put on my sunblock. Bad boy. Then I put it on this morning and it was too windy to go out and do anything this morning. So we are putting down some herbicide in the vineyard to knock out some of the weeds in the rows. And herbicides are meant to kill plants. And but we got 13,000 plants out there that we don't want to kill. So when it's windy, we have a harder time directing the herbicide to where we want it to go, so we don't spray when it's windy. So this morning I got up at 4:45, looked out the window for about an hour and 15 minutes and gave up because it was getting windier and windier, and it's been pretty windy all day today. So we're hoping for a nice calm morning tomorrow so we can get that finished up.
So did you show that other rock?
No,
that
I didn't.
Talked about?
I didn't. Another thing that's really important is our soil is it's a kind of a red soil. It's almost a Sedona red. I know it's hard to see in that picture, but our vineyard is filled with these rocks. That just looks like a plain old rock, but actually the inside of it is rhyolite. And that's what the Chiricahua Mountains are made out of. It's a form of granite. And it's actually, I don't know if you'll ever see this or not, but it's actually purple inside. And when that purple rock got pulverized by the volcano, it turned it red. So it looks like it's full of iron, but it's not. It's just a natural chemical reaction of purple getting superheated and turning into red. So the rhyolite granite not only makes for a nice feature in the vineyard, but also the Chiricahua Mountains are the purplest mountains you've ever seen at sunset. They are so purple, it's just mind-blowing. So that's rhyolite granite, and that's what our mountain's made out of, and that's what's all in our vineyard. Most of the rocks look like that, but if you crack them open, you get a purple surprise.
And we have about, how much? About 24 inches of that
Dust.
that red.
It's 18 to 24 inches. And then when we first put the end posts in the vineyard, we dug down 24 feet to see where these boulders stopped. They're about that size, and they're very, very uniform. So you can tell it was a cataclysmic explosion. We dug down 24 feet and we still were hitting it. So it's quite a bit of that volcanic rock is down below. So our vines will never get out of it. Our vines are probably down about 7 feet now. And they'll probably, when they're 20 years old, they'll probably be down about 15 or 16 feet. So they'll never get out of that environment. And that's okay with me. I like them there. It's a good thing.
And we see that impacting the flavors in our wines, so to speak. As I think Curt said earlier, we're starting to really taste our vineyard in our vines or in our wines. And I think part of it is from that rhyolite granite, that the roots are really getting down deep into that.
Yeah, definitely.
So that kind of talks about the soil and our terroir, a little bit about our water and the technology that we do. I guess I can open it up for questions again. I'm going to unmute everyone, see if anyone has any questions. There's got to be an easier way to do all this, but I just don't know it. Okay, I unmuted everyone, so you have controls of your own muting, if that's a word.
I have a question.
Okay, who's this?
It's Barbara.
Hi, Barbara.
How deep is your well?
It's 580 feet. So it's down
500 what?
580 feet.
Okay, all right.
It's a very deep well. A couple reasons. We hit water at about 60 feet because the creek runs next to us, and the creek actually is underground. It's still running right now. It's been running since January. It's the longest it's ever run, basically. It's so since we had such a wet winter.
Mm-hmm.
We went down that far because we can't run out of water, and that's the most reliable source. We're fortunately one of the first straws in the pool, because all the water comes off the Chiricahua Mountains and goes into the valley where Kansas Settlement is, and they have water issues down there. There are water tables all over the place. If I was down there, I'd be a nervous wreck all the time. But we're one of the first straws in the pool. And so our water is very reliable. Our well pumps about 25 gallons a minute.
Mhm.
That's very strong. And we have a 5,000 gallon storage tank too. So our water, we can run about 8 hours straight and not worry about running out of water. At that point, the tank is depleted and the well can't keep up with
Mhm.
the vineyards.
Do you use the creek water for
No.
irrigation?
No, it's too unreliable and it would be too difficult to get it into the vineyard. And plus, because of our drip irrigation system, we would have to purify it. It would be filled with silt and all kinds of things. We'd have real problems trying to do that. So the creek, we just enjoy it. You can hear it from the house when it's running. So we just enjoy the feature of it, but it's really, it does help our water situation because most of it goes underground. And only when we have a surplus of rain or snow does it actually come above the surface. But it's running year round. 100 years ago, I think it was 1903, there was an earthquake in Sonora. And Ash Creek, our creek, used to run year round. And the earthquake event actually sent the creek underground for most of the year.
Wow, interesting.
It's a wonderful wildlife corridor because we have 20 acres that is in the creek.
Yeah.
And it's what we see turkey and bear and all kinds of deer and wildlife used, as well as human wildlife.
Yeah, right.
Any other questions?
It's a beautiful creek. It's got 150-year-old live oak trees. It's got ash. It's got sycamore. It has pine trees in it. That the pine cones rolled off the mountain because the whole mountain is ponderosa pine. It's got juniper, and all kinds of different flora and fauna in the creek. So it's a really neat feature to have the house right next to it and the vineyard right next to it.
Is your water really hard?
No.
A lot of, no?
We drink it right out of the tap. It's beautiful water. In fact, it's so pure that I'm getting it to the ground to absorb it. Some will kind of bounce off because there's no in it to speak of. So it's very, very pure.
Good.
Any other questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
State your name.
JR again, John Raymond, Curt.
Yeah, John.
Quick question. Is your weather station on Weather Underground?
No, it's not, but that's something I would like to explore. Definitely.
Yeah, be nice to see you on there. And then with your discussion of the volcanic soils, would you consider yourself comparable to Mount Etna in Sicily? The vineyards over there?
I'm not that good at making pasta.
Bar.
Okay, all right, I can make pasta.
Yeah.
I don't know that much about Mount Etna, but it seems like there's a common thread between all the volcanic areas. I mean, we
would think.
like wines from Mount Veeder and Napa Valley.
Yeah.
A lot. That's got some volcanic soil to it. Some of Eastern Washington has some very volcanic soil, but there's really the only place that I could, if you've ever been to Amador County in Northern California, east of Sacramento, the mountains and how they're configured and how our vineyard is configured on the west slope of the Chiricahua. Amador County vineyards are on the west slope of the Sierra Nevada. And Sierra Nevada aren't known to be real volcanic, but they had to be to cause the cataclysmic event that made 15,000 foot high mountains. And then that lake, there had to have been something going on. And I don't know exactly what it was, but the cataclysmic events that cause volcanic eruptions and then therefore volcanic vineyards, I think they're probably pretty common around the world wherever they're located.
Sure.
The rhyolite granite makes a difference because it's not found everywhere. And the preponderance of the granite on that mountain is rhyolite. Or typically you're going to find a mountain that's comprised of maybe 100 to 200 different kinds of granite, igneous rocks. So the volcanic soil here is a result of the rhyolite. Other places, I don't know. The neat thing about it, when we went to the Rhone Valley in last May, And we were up at the La Hermitage, up on the mountain there.
Where the Southern Rhone and the Northern Rhone meet, basically.
Yeah, and it's of course a very famous growing region. We actually got to go up on the mountain on a private tour, and we were kicking around on it, and it was that.
It looked just like that.
And it's for the first time I felt validated that we planted the varietals that we did, because they grow Viognier, Syrah, and Grenache there, mostly Syrah. And we were kicking around the soil going, Peggy kept picking it up going, this
Oh
is
my God.
this is ours. So that was a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
We were on a world-class, award-winning vineyard up on this Hermitage looking over the Rhone Valley, and the soils were just like ours. It was much hillier, obviously, than our vineyard is. I would not have wanted to work their Syrah vineyard at all, but the soils were just beautiful. Their vineyards look like shit, but
Peggy, but that, the preponderance of these 2-inch rocks, I mean, it's all gravel.
Yeah. everywhere.
Everywhere. And it's like, how can it grow in that? Boy, does it grow. And it grows some great grapes.
Right.
We brought back, I had never had a real fondness for Roussanne and Marsanne, which are 2 Rhone white grapes. I've always liked Viognier, and that's one of the reasons we planted it, and I thought it would do well here. But the Marsanne and Roussanne from that spot were just
Stunning.
stunning. And I've never shipped a white wine home in my life. Right? White wine home from there.
I think we shipped 7 cases of wine.
No, it was 6.
6 cases of wine.
I actually shipped home white wine. I was so impressed with it, and it got me thinking maybe someday we might want to plant some Marsanne or Roussanne here, because we still have about 5.5 acres of plantable ground left. And if we how to get water on it, maybe one of these days. If you guys buy enough wine, we can plant some more.
That's our shameless plug.
Yeah.
We'll try to keep up.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
It also grows some pretty nice iris too.
Yeah.
These are growing right
love it.
in front of the
love
house. We've got 2 iris beds, and so if you can get water on it, anything will grow down here. We've got orchards with cherries, almonds, apples, and pears, and they're already loaded up. They've all flowered, and the little starting to form. So
Those are
we like to grow lots of
beautiful.
stuff.
Wish we were here full time. We've been down here about 4 or 5 weeks now, just sheltering in place, but we're not here full time. Any other questions right now before we move on?
I just want to have your barbecue this year.
Yes, in fact, we're going to be doing more events at the vineyard this summer. My goal is to spend more time down here and do more destination events. So
Awesome.
more about it.
Fantastic.
Yes.
And a lot of it has to do with how long the tasting room is going to be closed.
Yeah, that's what we want to know. When do we get our next wine club shipment?
October.
October. Okay, great. So can we still order for pickup on Saturdays?
Oh,
Yes.
sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
But let us know ahead of time, because if we don't have very many people picking it up, I don't want to have Cheryl Ann go down there.
Yeah. Okay.
Just
Thank
sit
you.
and
Awesome.
do it. Yeah, sure.
I just want to say hi. I want to say hi to everyone because I see everyone's name and I know where you live because I share. And so everyone's name, it's like kind of a friendly face when. so
Watch
it's
out.
nice-
Cheryl Ann's from Boston, so they break kneecaps around there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Small problem, we say.
Yeah, yeah.
But I wanted to say hi, and obviously it's really nice to see everyone's name and put faces to it. I've seen some of you in the tasting room, which is awesome. And I wanted Curt to kind of maybe elaborate a little bit more about the organic, because a lot of people do ask, and since you both treat the vineyard in such the land, since we're talking about Earth Day, and everything, the grapes, in such a kind manner, I thought it might be nice to explain. Some people don't understand a lot of what goes into getting certified. It doesn't mean you're not organic.
Yeah, we are not certified organic. It's extremely difficult. We one of the reasons we chose the site, as I mentioned earlier, is that there'd never been farming on it before. So we weren't inheriting somebody else's practices.
Or that there's any farming within 30 miles of us, because in Cochise County, there's tremendous amount of wind, as we talked about. And California is really seeing a lot of pesticide drift from commercial agriculture. There's a lot of cotton and corn and high production crops grown in Cochise County, and we didn't want to be anywhere near that. So
Yeah, when we found the spot, I mean, we went and visited some vineyards in Kansas Settlement, and they're growing grapes next to corn, and the corn is crop dusted. Tell me that they're not getting some of that stuff. They've got it. So you see airplanes flying over a cornfield to a vineyard. That's not where we wanted to be. But we are not organic. We do use commercial fertilizers because we can't. We felt it'd be easier to maintain vegan status than organic status. It's very, very difficult. You can't use any pesticides. We've used pesticides 3 times in 12 years because we had an infestation of an insect that found us interesting for some reason.
and we could not get rid of them in any other way.
Any other way. So you protect the investment, and sometimes you do things you don't want to do, but we try to do it as minimally as possible. But we do add commercial nitrogen to our irrigation system. The trace elements I talked about earlier are not organic. They are commercially produced. So technology we have, we can be minimal with the additives, but they're still needed.
We tried, one year we had those tomato bugs.
Tomato hornworms, anybody ever seen those?
They were about this big when we started walking through the field, and we said, we're going to pick them all off. And so we walked and picking all these worms off the plant, and the plant is just waving from all of these worms. We could not do it. There was just so many, and they were eating the vines so quickly we couldn't keep up with them.
And they end up being about that long,
Yeah, it was
and
ugly.
about that big around. They're solid green. They look like green.
Ugly.
They are
Yeah.
so foul.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
And
ugly.
They go from this black and yellow little caterpillar
looking cute,
to
little
this.
fuzzy
That's
things.
never that cute.
Yeah,
And they end up
ugly.
in like 2 days, they're one big intestine.
Yeah, I
The
know.
reason they turn
They are
green is
so
because they're
ugly.
full of your leaves.
Yeah,
So when those things come to visit, they get,
we only had them one time.
yeah, they don't get a welcome mat from us for that. So,
Another thing, we're talking about pests and pest management. We do not like bees. We hate bees. And I know bees are protected, but our vines are self-pollinators. We don't need bees. And bees during the growing season love to poke holes in all of the different grapes. They don't drink it. They just poke holes, and they make the grape rot then. We hate bees.
and plus they're hazardous for workers.
Right.
Also in harvest, if you have a lot of bees on the crush pad, it's very uncomfortable. I get stung a couple times every crush. So yeah, bees are, they can go somewhere else.
And down in Wilcox area, we did have a worker die from a bee
African bees.
vineyard. So,
Oh,
because he did not know he was allergic to bees. And, so pest management is really critical. We have a lot of rodents. And so we have owl house and a raptor house, and we love those kinds of birds and trying to control the rodents in the vineyard.
We actually have right down our street. There's a dead tree, and there's a nest of great horned owls, and you can see the mama's head over the top of the nest, and she's got 3 babies now. And so
cool.
we're
Very
hoping
cool.
they stick around. Yeah.
In that
Cheryl
same
Ann?
vein, in that same vein, I think you guys probably have deer fencing and whatnot
Yes.
around.
Yes. Yeah. We have a 7-foot deer fence around
Yeah.
the entire property.
And the javelina this year were prolific,
No,
a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so we have been very creative because they love to dig under the fence and get it.
Yeah.
And so we had to be very creative in addressing the javelina problem this year.
Yeah, we
Even
had a
coyotes
pretty,
will get in there,
we
right?
had, pardon me?
I said even coyotes will like to get in there and munch on grapes
Oh,
around
yeah.
harvest time.
Yeah, they would, but they have a hard time getting in. The
Right, I
javelina
know they would.
flat. It's amazing to watch them turn into a pancake when they want to get in somewhere. They're amazing. Plus, they're smart and they're vindictive.
Well, they like quality wine.
That's right.
Well, our good friends Mickey and Bill, Mickey's mother came to visit the vineyard, and she kept calling them habaneros. She could not get that out of her head. It was hilarious.
Now, getting back to the question that Cheryl Ann had, once once we bring the wine into, or the grapes into the vineyard or the winery, we're also very concerned about the winemaking process and ensuring that it's sustainable. Everything we do, try to recycle in some way. We're very intentional. We chose for our closure on our bottle because it is a renewable resource. We fell in love with cork when we were in Portugal and had a picnic and wine in this huge cork field with a rolled up cork that had already been harvested and it was drying out in this field. And we just fell in love with cork. So we'll always use cork. We don't use a metal closure on our wines purposefully. The foil, we got rid of that because it's a waste of money as well as an impact to the environment, not needed in any way. So we got rid of the foil. Early on, we had a big Burgundy bottle, and a lot of you like Dee and Rich who have been with us from day one. It was a very heavy bottle and it's odd size. So we went to a much more streamlined bottle to reduce our carbon footprint because we're now shipping all over the country, and it's not only saved us a lot of money, but it also makes sense from an environmental standpoint.
It knocked about 5 pounds off a case of wine. That's how
Really?
much.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Wow.
You add that up, how much it costs. Not only it hurts my back, but it's a lot cheaper to ship.
We don't use styrofoam, as you know, if you've received our shipments. All of our packages are recyclable. We also
It started at.
below
Like-
the national average in terms of sulfites in our
I
wine.
was excited about that. Well, I had
Was
it
there a
on-
question I'm missing?
Yes. Oh, well, I had a question, Peggy and Curt. So why do they put the foil over the top? I mean, what's the point? Does it?
It
the wine
used to
better, or
be.
what's the point?
It used to be an extra layer of protection, but the technology now of the cork manufacturing is so much better. Plus, we use really good corks.
Yeah,
That's your last line of defense.
you can get cheaper corks than we
You
use.
can get corks for 3 to 5 cents.
Oh,
We pay 34 to 44 cents a piece. That's a high grade. Our wines are gonna age. Out how
Yeah.
good they're aging. We're drinking some 10s and 11s that are still beautiful for 1 and 2 year old vines. Wines lay down.
Yeah, we know.
Don't you lay them down. You got to drink them.
Drink them, don't.
But-
We're
Oh, yeah, no, we know you've all been wine. I just didn't know if there was a reason for it, if it protected cork or something, but yeah.
They used to put wax over the top of bottles. You can still see
Yeah.
that at the time. That was because the cork technology was not very good. And then they went to foil, I think, as a second layer of protection. And then
Not too much.
the corks got more efficient and bottling processes got more efficient and cleaner. It basically became a cosmetic thing. And
Okay. Oh, okay.
to put your logo somewhere else on the bottle. We had a chef that we worked with on a winemaker dinner, and he'd never seen a bottle without a foil on it before, and he would not drink wine because it didn't have a foil.
Pretty unusual, but yeah, I mean.
But you're seeing more and more of it now.
Yeah.
The people are following that trend, and I think we were the first ones in Arizona to do it. Now, a lot of wines you're seeing from Arizona are no longer using foil.
Wow.
I want to tell you about our wines, that when you're talking about our wines, not only are our sulfites very low, but we ferment down to 0 residual sugar by purpose, and also its relationship to the alcohol levels of our wines at our altitude.
We get very ripe fruit. So we have to be very careful with it so wines don't get too high.
So we're getting close to the clock, and I don't want to hold on to everyone much longer. Are there any other questions that you might have?
So Peggy, just quickly, you guys were explaining the cork. So because a lot of people do ask, and you know, you do use the high quality corks, why do some people use closures versus a synthetic cork? Or is that something you just touched on?
Synthetic. So why do some people use synthetic corks? For those, if you're not asking a question, go ahead and mute yourself if you would. Someone's on the phone and we can hear you.
I know he was calling, I know he was calling. Just, we're in a Zoom meeting right now, so that's, but let me get it. Hey, honey, it's for you. Just a second. Here you go.
And honey, I can hear you. So, synthetic cork.
Well, synthetic corks are inexpensive. They're also a lot less apt to have a passageway through. You've heard of corked bottles. Everybody's probably smelled a corked bottle. It smells like wet cardboard or wet dog. That's a formation of a substance called TCH, not THC, TCH, and that throws off that musty smell and ruins the wine. Well, that occurs typically from two reasons. One, the sanitation was not great during the bottling process. And two, there could have been a passageway through that natural cork that let oxygen into the bottle. It happens. We have had cork bottles. We get one every once in a while, and there's nothing you can do about it because that cork is a natural substance. And sometimes just a little passageway through there that ruins your day. But we feel that the benefits of the cork, not only for environmentally, since it's renewable, but I think the wine does breathe a little bit through the cork, and I think that benefits the wine over time. And so the synthetic corks were, I remember 15 years ago, it was going to be, well, that's the end of the cork industry. Synthetic corks are going to take over, and they didn't.
Yeah. And a lot of the screw top people, which is great, but are coming back to cork. A lot of screw tops. Our wine is made to age a long time, and we just don't think a screw top allows that aging to really do well. Nothing wrong with a screw top on wines at all. You're seeing fine wines use a screw top, like cork, again, because it's recyclable and it's perfect for our wines. Any other questions?
All right, well, let's wrap up. I want to tell you, we've got 2 new wines coming out soon. The labels are in production. We've got our 2017 barrel fermented, barrel aged Viognier.
Yay!
If you guys remember the 14, it was very, very popular. It sold out very quickly. We're going to have about 200 cases of that. So we're looking forward to getting that out as soon as the taste room gets open again. And then we have our 2014 Sky Island Petite Syrah in label production right now.
Yay.
Petite, and it's really nice drinking wine. It's not something like the signature. It's a lot more simple wine than that. It's just going to be a nice, drinkable, kind of an everyday big red wine. Those will be coming out soon, and then we've got other things coming out. We just tasted the 16 Grenache a couple weeks ago, and it is just off the hook.
Amazing.
Off the hook.
I'm not a big Grenache fan. That's not my favorite wine. Many of you know that. But our 2015 Grenache, which is what we're drinking here, is, in my opinion, it's my new favorite wine. It's phenomenal. And the 16 is even more incredible. So that is exciting. Hopefully some of you are drinking our Syrah, which is co-fermented with the Viognier. That's a pretty exciting wine, as well as our rosé is so unique with the rosé of Grenache. So if you don't, you do, many of you club members, if you're Summit, you're still receiving a 20% discount if you order through the end of the month. So let us know if you need wine to get you through the summer. And if you are Chiricahua Circle or Pinnacle members, you get 25% even on single bottles. If you need to get through the summer. I don't know when we're going to be opening up our tasting room. We're trying to keep our staff At least Cheryl Ann, who's our full-time staff, we're trying to keep her busy. So order wine so we can keep her busy. And we have some interesting things in the works. But we're trying to think about what LDV is going to look like in the future and what our tasting room might look like in the future. Because I have a feeling we're going to be with this environment for a while longer. So we're doing some very in-depth strategic planning. We are, of course, we had a major financial hit like everyone has, but you know, harvest is going to be a difficult time for us to bring in the harvest because we make all our money in March, April, and May, and it's been challenging. So tell your friends about us. We probably should only ship around the country through this week because of the weather, but we'll be doing pickup and delivery around town. So still Saturday pickups or we'll do delivery. So let me know, call the tasting room, and that is about it. Tomorrow we're cooking again. If you've been joining us on Thursdays for our Facebook Live at 4 o'clock, we're cooking again tomorrow. We're making flatbreads 3 ways.
Yummy.
Wines we're drinking?
No, I don't.
I don't remember
I don't
either.
know. I think we'll make it up as we go along.
Yeah. We have a lot of fun doing that. So if you haven't joined us, join us at Facebook Live on LDV Winery tomorrow at 4 o'clock every Thursday. People seem to like it, so we may continue through May with it. And you can get the recipes online also, or give us a call or send me an email. I could send you the recipes as well as shopping list. Several people every week cook along with us, so it's kind of fun. Join us. Anything else?
I'm done.
Thanks, you guys.
Really good to see you.
everybody.
Stay well.
Stay well. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Stay
Cheers.
well.
Thank you.
Stay healthy.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Millikins.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, you bet. Take care. Stay well.
You too.
Yeah. Bye, Cheryl.
Bye. Oh.
Bye, John, Cheryl Ann, Janelle, good to see ya.
Great job. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
John. JR, see you soon.
Bye now. Wish I was
Bye.
a Scott there.
Bye, Don and Barbara. I see you guys. See you soon. I'm going to end the meeting. Virtual tour of the vineyard. Yeah, okay. Very good. Stop. And meeting. And